that is why we are there. Keep watching. Please.
Good evening, viewers. Welcome to the Newspunch for today. My name is Chukwudi Nwabuku. I am standing in for Tunde. Today we are going to discuss about the recently held election in Nigeria, the presidential election and the National Assembly election, as well as the governorship and House of Assembly election in Nigeria. With me to discuss it today is a renowned solicitor, Kingsley Onyemenem, of the principal partner, KC Law Chamber Solicitors. He has his firm based in the UK, US, and in Nigeria. Mr. Onyemenem, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you. We all know that on February 2023, this year, the Presidential and National Assembly election held in Nigeria. And after the election, the APC was declared the winner, and President Muhammadu Buhari was re-elected as president. So we are here today to talk about all the things that have happened since the election was held, and also the election that held on Saturday that was about the governorship and the State Assembly. We are here to discuss it, to know what has happened, where we got it right and where we got it wrong. So I want to ask you now, Mr. Onyemenem, how will you describe the election that has just been held in Nigeria, holistically?
Okay, I think first of all, I must start by saying a big congratulations to our president, Muhammadu Buhari, who clearly successfully won this election. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. Well, not a bit, but it's been a roller coaster for most of us who actually observed the events that took place and how voting was carried out and how the violence that was involved in it, also loss of life that took place in certain areas, especially in the eastern part of Nigeria. But also taking us to the state elections, the governorship elections, how that has played out. There was also a great level of rigging that happened. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily put a blame on any particular party, but I think most of the parties that were involved in this actually took part in rigging, and it's more. The outcome was more like the best rigger won the day. That's my view on it. But I'm glad it's over, and at least for this period, for the next 4 years, Nigeria can see a bit of serenity.
Okay, how would you define the role played by INEC in the whole exercise?
I think INEC has a lot of work ahead of them. It's quite disappointing that having said that they were prepared for this election, what transpired during this period clearly showed that they were very deficient in their role. And I think if blames are to be put on anybody, INEC should bear the bulk of that blame. As far as I'm concerned, they have a lot of things to do. They have a lot of preparation to make. And if I were in a position to make decisions as to how that body should perform, I probably would scrap it and replace it with something else.
Wow, you talked about rigging in the,
yes,
in the whole election enterprise.
Yes.
Can you talk about the role violence in the election, how it affected the outcome of the election? Because without violence, violence is part of rigging.
Yes.
People go violently, they do violent things in order to rig. Some people can come to a collation center,
yes, cause
confusion, tear the ballot paper, and then it gives room for rigging.
Yes.
So how would you describe the violence?
I think violence obviously was a tool that was used by most of the political parties in achieving what they ultimately wanted, which was to win outright victory during the period. The instances where ballot boxing took place, people were killed, voters, people who were prepared to actually vote, had either run for their life from voting centers, where either there have been killings or there were riots or all sort of things happened basically. But I think violence it played a major role. It was a tool that had to be used by those political parties who were hell bent on winning this election.
Yes.
And it was an effective tool, if I must say.
Okay, effective tool.
Yes.
Now look at the role played by the security agencies. We saw pictures and videos of military men. We saw the policemen, some of them attempting and even going ahead to cut ballot boxes. Some of them were shooting everywhere. For example, in Rivers State, before the election itself, military took over the states.
Yes.
So, can you tell us what is supposed to be in a democracy? What is the role of the military and the other security agencies?
Well, the military has no role to play in an election period. We're not talking about a state of emergency. We're talking about a situation where electorates went out there to cast their votes. The people who should be out there to enforce the law effectively should be the police, not the military. The military has no role whatsoever. And obviously, bringing the military into a situation of this nature, where we already have tensions, would not do nothing but to exacerbate it. And that's exactly what happened. And I think, perhaps from what we have seen all along during the election period, you'd find that very clearly the military roles, the role of the military was one-sided to a greater extent. And like we spoke earlier on about violence, people were killed. I mean, there were incidents of citizens who were shot. There were incidents of those who were responsible for pulling boats whose lives were threatened, and they were made to effectively, name individuals who were effective, who were not winners of the election. Example of that was in Imo State. I think we had what happened with Rocha Sokorosha, and how he was declared winner of the to go to the House.
To the Senate.
Yes, to the Senate.
Yes.
Yes.
So talking about the role of the security agencies in Nigeria today,
Yes.
Compared to the last elections we had and now, what has happened? What went wrong? By now we have spent almost 16 years plus or so, in almost 20 years in electioneering, given from 1999 till now. Why is there any improvement? Is there any improvement really on electioneering, or are we going back in the way the military is taking over this thing now, the way they participate in this election? Is it not? How has it helped contribute to our democracy in Nigeria?
I think from my perspective, and I'm not sure whether a lot of people share this view, but I think this perhaps was one of the worst elections that Nigeria has ever undertaken. Before the election started, we were of high hopes. We knew that certain things would happen. We knew that rigging was going to take place. But we were of certain hope. We were of hope that it would not be as bad as before. In fact, I thought perhaps it was going to be a lot more better than previous years. But what we've seen basically takes us back, almost 16 years from our democracy, as it were. And I think it's a big shame on this country called Nigeria, my country called Nigeria. We've seen how Ghana, of all countries, organized their elections. Not a single incident. Why can't we be that way? I really don't understand.
Okay. I want to take you back to the role of INEC with that, because if you don't have an unbiased umpire,
Yes.
it will be difficult to have a good election.
Yes.
How would you compare the INEC led by Mahmoud Yakub and the INEC of, let's say, that was headed by Professor Humphrey Nwosu in the option A4 era? Can you compare the two?
No.
What is the difference?
Look,
are we making progress now, or?
No. There's no comparison. You talked about being unbiased, and somebody in the position of somebody in the position who heads INEC should be unbiased. We've seen in this era, and perhaps in the previous era, that before, during the time of Jonathan, we find that INEC has been used as a tool, or those who are heading INEC obviously had a political biased view. And that makes it quite unfair. An umpire in a particular situation ought not to take a position. I think, in fact, if you should call a spade where you see one. But that hasn't been this case. And this is a body that ought to determine the fate of Nigerians, as it were. So I don't think their role is anything to write home about, and I don't think it's something for me to come on TV and praise. I think there are severe failures that should be addressed. I believe that there are questions that are yet to be answered. We've seen how recently they've said they would not release the results for the presidential votes that were cast when Atiku had demanded them. So I just think that INEC's role should be one of fairness on both sides.
Okay, thank you. We have a caller. A caller is on the way. Dotu, are you there, Dotu?
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Dotu.
Hello.
Yeah, where are you calling from?
I'm coming from London.
Okay. Do you have a question or you want to make a statement?
Yes, I have been listening to your comments and the comments of the people who participated in the Nigeria Decide on NTA. They all seem to put emphasis on the INEC. The INEC is only an electoral agent. It's not empowered to force people to go to the polls. It's only empowered to ensure a smooth running of an election. And if in the international observers declare that the whole system was fair and peaceful, then there is only a pocket of violence in Nigeria, especially in certain area. I won't mention a particular area, but anybody who listened to the results and co will remember that it was only limited to one particular area of Nigeria. And but the sadness about the whole election, about the whole of the presidential election, is that here we had Jonathan, the former president, who contested against Buhari in 2015, who accepted defeat, gracefully left office. We now have a challenger in the name of Atiku Abubakar, who on the eve of the election, on the day of the election, was asked by reporters, will you accept defeat if Buhari won the election? He said he was a Democrat. His actions so far are undemocratic. And if there were pockets of violence during the gubernatorial election and the state assembly elections, then this gentleman must own up and say, well, his refusal to accept the democratic decision of Nigerians to re-elect President Buhari was contributed to it. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Okay, do you think that the Atiku has an option to go to court? Is it his right to go to court? Okay, sorry, we lost him. Yeah, he made. I could shed light on that if you want me to. Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay, look, if we look at it from this perspective, the international observers had, yes, quite a few of them after the election said it was fair in all the circumstances, but also we know rather, that they had also criticized the shortcomings of the election itself and INEC, as it were. Now, I wouldn't necessarily use the yardstick put down by the international observers to determine what the parties or the individual participants of the elections' rights are. If somebody who loses an election has grounds, as it were, to go to court and challenge his opponent, if he feels that he was shortchanged, or if he feels that the person who was declared winner was the wrong individual, then that's his absolute right to do so. And in terms of the fact that Jonathan accepted defeat during his time doesn't necessarily mean that every individual must accept defeat. Clearly, if he goes to court, he has to adduce evidence to show why he has actually challenged the outcome of the election. And I think that's his absolute right to do so. And I don't think that in any way makes him less of a person, as it were.
Okay. Do you agree with one point you raised, that the issue of violence was on particular areas?
I don't think that's correct. I think that is completely. I mean, we saw what was happening on the ground. There were various and series of reports. To say that these were spots of violence is to literally, I think, undermine the loss of life that took place and the injuries that took place in this particular period. So I don't agree with it, I'm afraid.
We remember that a lawmaker lost his life in
Of course, yes. I mean, there were several people. There were people who were literally, yes, massacred and killed. There were those who were killed because they were voting for a particular party.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily call that sport, and it wasn't. I think the doctor who spoke mentioned the fact that it was in one particular state, if I'm correct. This happened in several states. There were violence in several states. There were killings in several states. There were unlawful killings in several states, and I think, I mean, it shouldn't. This is present day Nigeria. Things like this should never ever be heard of.
Yeah, but another issue that is of importance is in elections there is a particular age limit you can get before you vote.
Yes.
And then we witness many underage voters in Nigeria.
Yes. Well,
why was that?
Well, look, I mean, I think we know why that is. It's you know, there were places. I remember during the presidential elections when the votes were being collated, and eventually when they were being announced, and people, we found there were incidents where in a certain particular polling area where registered voters, those who voted were actually more than the registered voters, and I mean, that's almost a mathematical impossibility. And this, perhaps, if you have underage voters, that perhaps could explain one of those things. I think people clearly who are not supposed to vote ought not to be allowed to vote, but it happened in this election.
Many of these underage voters had voters card.
Well,
they have PVCs.
I guess that's an answer. That's a question for INEC to answer when the time comes.
Wow. Another thing that we should talk about is the issue of the spate of this proclaiming inconclusive elections. From what we have now, we have about 6 or 7 states that we have inconclusive results or elections. But it wasn't so in the presidential election.
No.
Every election, all the states returned figures. But now we are witnessing inconclusive election. Is there a pattern developing in this area? Are you seeing any?
I think perhaps that's perhaps one of the reasons why I believe that Atiku would probably want to go to court and have his day, because when you declare not just one state or 2 states inconclusive, but you declare several states as inconclusive, and you know that those who have contested ought to have scored carry a particular number of states to be the winners as presidential aspirants, or whether it's the state at the state level. What you're simply then doing is denying that individual the possibility. And I think in this instance you can compare the number of inconclusive that was announced to what happened in the last election. And I think it's, for me, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a pattern, but one could draw the sort of inference that they want to draw from it. But I think perhaps it shouldn't have happened.
Okay. We have another caller. Akilu. Hello, Akilu.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Where are you calling from, Akilu?
Good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Yeah, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Manchester.
Oh, okay. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. My comments are quite brief. I think one of them is an observation and the other is a follow-up question. So, going to the first, I think I'll just be following up on what the previous caller spoke about with regards to violence. Yes, of course, loss of life should not be condoned under any circumstance, no matter the number. However, I think it's also unfair to blame all the violence on the election process itself without looking at the root cause or the knock-on effect of Nigeria as a country. So, I mean, prior to elections, we've had cases of violence due to one reason or another, and some of these things that happened during the elections are just replicas of things that have happened in the past. I mean, people have held grudges and are just using the election as an avenue. So I don't think all of the violence is as a result of the election itself. Of course, there will be instances where this is the case. Now, secondly, with regards to comparing to previous elections, well, I am not in Nigeria, but when I compare the reports I saw during previous elections, especially in certain areas in the country, I wouldn't want to mention these, I would say this is a relatively peaceful process. Under the circumstances. Of course, it's not, I wouldn't say free and fair in its totality, but under the circumstances, and yes. So now my second question, which I'm not sure if maybe I missed the comment from Kingsley, but you did ask a question related to comparing elections coordinated by Professor Humphrey Nwosu and the current INEC chairman. I'm not sure he gave a direct response to that comparison. So if he did, if I missed it, if he doesn't mind, can he please reiterate what conclusions he drew from that comparison? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Did you hear him?
I think the core of the question, or rather the reason, perhaps if I'm correct, the reason why that question was asked is to the undertone there is whether there was bias.
Yeah.
If I'm right. And I think perhaps if we look at the records of the previous gentleman who you mentioned, Nwosu, and that which is taking, and that's headed by the present INEC chairman, I think there are clearly disparities. In my view, and that's in my view, based on what has happened on the ground, I think that headed by Professor Nwosu was very fair, and I think it was well commended, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, of course. We knew that maybe what we are comparing, because Nwosu was under the military regime.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Now we have the civilian regime, but
Yes.
what I'm going at was we expect that by now, having spent almost 20 years under democracy,
Yes.
that we should have an improved electioneering, and INEC should be unbiased, because from what's PDP, I'm not saying that what they're saying is correct.
Yes.
That's what they had to discuss.
Yes.
PDP is saying that INEC takes order from APC.
Well,
do you believe that?
Well, I mean, put it this way: it's until it's proven. I would perhaps say it's speculation. But if we look at the trend of events that's happened, you could understand why why the PDP would simply want to deduce that from what has happened in this election to say that orders were taken from APC. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there's no evidence on that. But I'm sure perhaps when Atiku goes to court, if he does choose to go to court, he would perhaps be able to provide those evidence for us to see.
Yeah, but that is
But
not.
But sorry, go ahead.
There seems to be a divided opinion. People are
yes, of
putting
course,
pressure
yes.
on him. Don't go to courts. Some people say go to courts.
Yes, well,
so what should be the idea?
Well, look, it's a civil right to seek redress in the court of law if he feels that INEC has not performed its role properly, or perhaps that APC shouldn't have been declared as the rightful winners of the presidential election. That's his right, and I cannot sit here and say to him, "Don't go to court." Yeah. I mean, if it's myself, if I'm the one in his shoes, I'll have to make my own personal decision on that.
Now let us zero in on particularly river states that seem to be a hotbed. From what we know so far,
yes,
the election have been discontinued, or it's been declared inconclusive, or
yes,
have been suspended. Really, election suspended.
Yes.
What does that portend? What does election in river stopping in the election in river states? What does it?
Well, I believe River State was where wasn't that where the military was deployed? I'm not sure whether the military was deployed because of unexpected violence, but I would have said, just like I said initially, the military has no role in a democracy. If we're talking about a military rulership, then I can understand that. But we're in the era of democracy, and if we have to practice democracy, then we need to use the tools that have been given to us that we effectively address situations like this. What should have simply happened, and I reiterate, is that the police ought to have been brought in to deal with any issue of violence, and not the military, and not the Navy, for instance. And I think bringing in the military, we need to understand, we need to be told why this has happened.
Yeah, but you can, if you recall, before the election itself, before the election, the Minister of Transportation,
yes,
Chibika Mechi,
yes,
came to the states and kind of threatened violence in that state. Of what he's going to do, he was singing a war song that they're going to put their feet on the ground, and the incumbent governor will not find this easy again to do what he used to do.
Yes.
And now, before the election itself, we saw a battery of military men. We saw a kind of battalion of military men coming into the states, and then that is the military soldiers coming to the states.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, violence. We could see the violence. People were being shot. People alive, people were being shot everywhere. And at the end of the day, we had that AA that was relatively unknown because APC hadn't got a candidate. They went under the umbrella of AA to support the candidate of AA or something. That is the Showore party.
Yes, correct, yes.
Yeah, so they had to support him. And at the end of the day, what we are hearing is that the result they are bringing is being in favor of that other party that is relatively unknown.
Yes. Could
that be the flashpoint that made them to be able? They had to come to help organize that.
I really couldn't put my hands on the purpose of it. But what I'm sitting here and querying, and what I will query is perhaps it might be a good idea to set up an inquiry to look into all this reports and incident that we knew took place, and perhaps call those people who actively took part in that, like you mentioned, Amechi, as it were. Let him come and explain to Nigerians why he threatened violence, and why, having threatened violence, the military were called in. It's easy to get to the bottom of it if we want to get to the bottom of it.
If you want to.
But like I said, one is then left to draw their own inference as to why what happened in that particular state happened. Because clearly we know, those from the River State will probably know who they want to vote for. Yeah. Just like we had in other states where, results were held to be inconclusive because of spots of violence or because of killings, as it were.
But we are witnessing a kind of a new development in Nigeria today. We had electoral commissioners saying that they were held under gunpoint,
yes,
to declare election results. For example, the one in Imo State,
yes,
said that before that he was under duress to declare Richard Okorocha as the winner of the senatorial election.
That's right.
So what does that take? Where does that take us to? What does it say about the temperament of those in power today?
I think we initially started this show by referring to the point, the role that violence plays in this, and I am glad to a greater extent that INEC has done the right thing in the case of Roches by not having him on the list, and he hasn't obviously made it senatorial seat, even though he was declared winner. And I think the role the individual who came on TV to tell the world why they had to announce him as the winner, must have done that knowing that that was the right thing to do. It's a very dangerous trend, and it wasn't just in Imo State. I think we also heard that during the presidential election also, that these individuals were made to announce those who perhaps didn't win the election at the time in question. So it's a very dangerous point, a very dangerous development.
Wow.
It is, because if you think about it, if you were supposed to be overseeing the police and you know that your life is in danger, what choice do you have? If you declare the rightful winner, you get killed. Do you understand? I mean, these people have been put in a very, how would I put it, a very unusual position. One of you choose your life. If you don't say what I've asked you to say, I will kill you. If you do say it, then you're fine. But I think this the person who came out on TV to tell us what had happened with regards to the case of Rochas was a very, very courageous individual, and they should be commended. Unfortunately, not all Nigerians will be that bold to take that step.
Yeah, thank you. Still on Imo State,
yes.
From what we are hearing and what we are seeing on social media, there seems to be a kind of euphoria in the states that the winner of election was the PDP won election.
Yes.
And that is the Emeka Ihedioha.
Yes.
What do we ascribe that celebration? If you can say that, what do you ascribe it
to? First of all, I have to say congratulations to Emeka Ihedioha, who won the governorship election in Imo State. Obviously, you know that Imo State is a hotbed also when it comes to the issue of politics. And I think the Imo citizens had gone to a point where they got tired of Rochas Okorosha, and they wanted to get rid of him by all means. And I think what you saw in this particular decision was perhaps a rebelling against the APC not taking over Imo, or Rochas continuing to rule Imo State. PDP clearly won the day in this instance, and I mean the INEC hasn't declared it inconclusive. Whether there was rigging in Imo State or not, I think there have been speculations about that. But I'm sure rigging would have taken place
in Imo State.
In Imo State, yes.
Well, why would you say that?
Well, I think rigging took place in literally, most states in Nigeria during this election.
Well, because many people believe that to rig effectively, you must be an incumbent. And why was it impossible for the incumbent governor to rig? Because he was the one that was fronting his in-law.
I really don't have any evidence to show that he rigged or he didn't rig, but we've had stories of snatching of ballot boxes. This happened in many places in Imo State. Wow. People being killed, people being injured, people being held under gunpoint to declare election results that wasn't true. But I think ultimately, I am glad that the elections, both the presidential election and the state elections and the senatorial elections, have come to an end. And at least now Nigerians can take a big breather.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have Tunde. Tunde is on Skype from Nigeria. Tunde. Hello, Tunde.
Chukwudi.
Yes.
Hi, Chukwudi.
How are you?
I'm very well. Pleasure.
Thank you for joining us.
You guys.
Thank you for joining us. Can you give us a lowdown on what is happening? Can you give us a lowdown?
Well, quite a lot of things happening in Nigeria at the moment. It depends on what you want to hear, basically, and it depends on what you want to get. 1,000,001 things happening in Nigeria as regards the election, which has just been won, which has just been won and lost by a lot of people. But the atmosphere is serene. There's no violence. just after the election in Abuja. I'm in Abuja at the moment, and reports coming in from Lagos says there's no violence. But in Ibadan, in Rivers, in Akwa Ibom states, and in some parts of South, we've got very huge violence with corresponding death. And that is actually expected when you see politicians having this do or die attitude. At all costs, they just want to win an election. You find out that it's absolutely going to become very violent. In my view, I think our democracy is under a very huge threat by politicians. Greedy, selfish, self-centered politicians who want to win at all costs. And I think if democracy is about the people, government of the people, by the people, and for the people, why must these people you want to represent die? Why must you kill them? Why must this become? Why must violence be unleashed on the people you want to represent, the people you want to govern, the people you want to make laws for, or the people you want to exercise control over? If democracy is about the people and if it's for the people, why must people die? And this is a question I do not understand. But I think this is very clear. Nigeria, as we practice our democracy today, is the highest bidder. You take all, you win and you take all, and so everybody want to win at all costs. So that is the situation we have in Nigeria today. And you see some states now that whose elections are now being declared inconclusive, like Kano State. There are rumors that actually INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission, that's supposed to be independent, conduct free, fair, credible election, is actually not indeed, by what we have seen now, not very independent.
Okay,
may not. Let me put it that may not be very independent. Let me not say that they are not independent, but may not be independent.
Okay, what do you say to the fact that what's happened in terms of how the military behaved during the election? What is their own contribution to the violence that rocked the elections?
The electoral provisions, the provisions in the electoral law, did not actually permit the military to participate in election. Now, the electoral law gives INEC the ultimate power to invite the military where there is an incident of violence. But it is at the discretion of INEC, not at the discretion of the president. It is at the discretion of INEC by electoral provision to ask for assistance from Nigeria military. And when it is Nigeria military, if they for any reason is invited by whatever means by INEC, they are not to come near anywhere there is electoral activities going on. They are strictly to provide security. But the incursion of the military into our electoral process now is a shame. In my view, it's a shame and is uncalled for. The Nigerian military, it seems to be compromised as it is. They seem not to be able to differentiate a professional responsibility from political responsibility. It appears to me the Nigerian military now has become a tool in the hand of desperate political gladiators. And this is very unfortunate. In my view, I've always held the view that the military does not have any role in our democracy.
Okay, how would you react? How would you react to the fact that the military is trying to deflect it by saying that the politicians we are arming their talks and then giving them military uniforms to wear? How would you react to that? Does that explain their presence in the?
Let me quickly say this: that the Nigerian military has actually come out to deny the involvement of the Nigeria Army in this election, especially in Rivers State. They have said that what is happening in Rivers State is unknown to the Nigerian military. But the question people are asking is that if the people that are currently perpetrating the violence in Rivers State, the obstruction of election in Rivers State are not original army personnel, what is the original army personnel doing to arrest and bring these people to justice? So if the Nigerian army is saying, hang on, we don't know these people are not military men, these people are not soldiers, okay, let's take them for their words. What has the Nigerian army done to checkmate these fake military men out there? Absolutely nothing. It means the Nigerian army is just trying to deceive us. I suppose, since the Nigerian army has not been able to arrest and bring to justice these fake military men, they claim to be fake military men, then it appears to me that the Nigerian army has not actually come out to tell us the real fact behind the incursion of the Nigerian army into our electoral process. And do not forget that few days to the election, the Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, did say he was going to order the military into our electoral process, and that the Nigerian army will be shooting at sight anyone that commits any electoral offense or snatches ballots. And so when you see the Commander-in-Chief giving the red light to Nigeria Army to participate in our election, and that the Nigerian Army is now saying, hang on 1 minute, the people that will say they are not original army, then somebody somewhere is not telling us the truth. Somebody somewhere is just taking Nigerians for fools, in my view.
Okay, have any question?
No, Tunde, I mean, Emeka has asked me what I thought about the role of INEC in this whole affair. Perhaps you might have a view on it. I don't know.
The role of INEC?
Yes, and whether it's been a fair process through them, or whether they've been biased all through.
But honestly, in my view, now I'm not talking as a journalist, I'm talking as an observer. What we have observed, INEC to me has not played an independent role in this election. In my view, the way INEC has handled this election is really absolutely short of what we had in 2015. One would have imagined that the 2019 general election was going to be better than the 2015 general election that we had. But it appears to me that the 2015 election is a way better than the 2019 election. And it appears to me that the independent under Professor Mahmood has not really justified the huge amount that the federal government allocated to it. Do not forget that this INEC is the most funded INEC in the history of Nigeria's election from 1999 till today. This INEC has received more funds than any other INEC. Yet, in my view, it has performed very poorly, far below our expectation.
Okay, Tunde, what about, can you tell us the situation with Alhaji Atiku now? Is he going to court or not? Of
course, the presidential candidate of PDP is already in court. The first application to the election tribunal for the inspection of INEC materials have been granted, and I assume at the moment that his officials will now be going through some of the election materials used by INEC in the just concluded. And so the issue of whether the former vice president and the presidential candidate of PDP will go to court has been settled, is already in court. The first application has been granted, and I believe that his people will be going through some of the materials that INEC basically used.
Okay. Thank you very much for talking to us. Thank you for
All right,
taking...
Chukudi, it is my pleasure. Thank you. It's a pleasure to join you guys in London for the talk today.
All right.
Thank you so much. We are
Take care
grateful.
today.
Yeah, thank you. You have heard him.
Yes, I have
So,
heard him.
what does that tell us
I
about...
think Tunde has painted quite a fair assessment of what my view, to a great extent, has been, which is the fact that, you know, where we are today is a far cry to where we ought to be, mindful of how far we've developed up until this stage. It's a huge setback. I spoke to quite a few first-time voters, and when I say first-time voters, I'm not talking about those who turned 18. I'm talking about adult male and female who had, for the first time in their life, actually come out to vote because they were eager to have a change. And with what has happened, with the killings, with the rioting, with what quite a few of them who felt that their right, their exercise right had been denied of them, have vowed never to come out and vote again because in their view, it makes no material difference who you vote for, because what it simply means is that those politicians who have the means would simply, have election results that they want, and not literally what voters have actually voted for. So it is a huge shame.
That brings also what they call voter apathy.
Yes.
For example, when we had that some people were even before the election, people who said, there's no need to go for this election. Let INEC allocate the votes and announce it. So that is the kind of situation in Nigeria today. People feel that election does not make any meaning to Nigerians again because you vote a different person and that person is announced as winner.
Yes, but you know what? I would want to say to Nigerians, not to be disheartened with what is happening now, because I think in certain areas, voters who voted, what they voted for was actually given to them. But this has to be a continuing process. We cannot just simply for this one election then make a decision and not to vote. Because I think it's important that we exercise this vote. Because I think during this vote, Nigerians had come out to say and speak their mind. And it was very evident how they wanted things done. So we should continue exercising that right.
Okay. There's one I want to ask you about in Imo State, because of why I'm asking you, because of the kind of developments there.
Yes.
What advice do you have for the incoming governor?
Well, I would want to say to him that he should please listen to the voice of the electorate, those who put him there. It is important that, we talk about tribalism along state lines sometimes, but it is unfortunate that sometimes also, even amongst, within the state, you do have people who will say, oh, I'm from A and I'm from B. Therefore, because I'm from B, I look after my people. I would want the governor, His Excellency, to please listen to the views of those who have elected him into office, to make sure that he passes laws and also takes steps to make their life better. Because I strongly believe that if a governor performs, and I believe that he will perform, if a governor performs well, there's no way come election date in the next 4 years that the voters will not come out to support him. So I want to congratulate him and say to him, please lead the people from Imo quite well.
Thank you, Kingsley.
Thank you.
We are coming to the end of this program now, so I want to thank all our callers who called into the program. I want to thank you for calling, and also thank you, Tunde, for coming up on Skype to talk to us. So as we round up this now, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you very much
for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I want to thank our viewers to watch us next week, also in a minute, as we come up again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, viewers.
Keep watching Newspunch.